My name is Jeff Morgan. I am from Dallas, Texas. And again, this is about the Save James case. Today is Friday, October the 18th. I did watch the fourth day of the hearing. The hearing will conclude, the trial. It's a jury trial. It will conclude Monday by 2 o'clock. And then the jury, I guess at that point, will make their decision. What shocked me among so many things, I mean, the fact that a judge can order a father not to call a boy, that a judge can order a father, you cannot get this child's haircut unless you talk with an amicus attorney. This is what happens in the state of Texas. Every single father and every single mother should be scared to death. Right now, they're picking on somebody who is divorced, which I believe is discrimination based on marital status. I believe that there should actually be a federal lawsuit against the state of Texas. I am not an attorney. I don't understand all of the law, so I may be wrong on this. But as far as I understand, you cannot discriminate against a person on the basis of marital status. And yet, does the state go into married couples and say, I am going to order you to no longer get your son's haircut? I'm going to order you to make your son's haircut look like a boy or a girl at age 6 years old. I'm going to order one of you to attend, or maybe both of you, to attend classes that would prepare you to accept your child if he or she either is transgender or potentially may become transgender, which would apply to every single person in the state of Texas. Now, when these two experts spoke yesterday, one of them was a professor of he's a pediatrician. He was a pediatric endocrinologist, an expert in his field, an expert among experts. This guy was tremendous, Dr. Cruz. Then there was also Dr. Stephen Levin. Stephen Levin is another researcher, teaches at Case Western Reserve, but they talked about this whole issue of transgenderism and what happens when a person medically transitions, when they take puberty blockers to suppress their hormones, and then they start to take cross-sex hormones to try to develop other types of genitalia and other things that would associate them with the opposite sex. Or maybe they go so far as to have a penis cut off and they try to reconstruct a vagina or something else similar to that. And it was horrifying to listen to them. They said in Sweden, there was a study done in which every single transgender person was studied by the government. They found that anybody who had this transgender surgery had a 19 times 19 times higher risk of committing suicide. They talked about things like comorbidity factors, and these would be things that would cause other additional complications to their life, how they increased with the transitioning from one supposed gender to another. And by the way, even though you may mutilate yourself and change the outward appearance of your genitalia or something else, at your chromosomes, you are still an XY or an XX. You cannot change that. So regardless of what you appear to be, you are still a man or a woman. You are still an XY chromosome person or an X chromosome person. You cannot change that, even if you want to cut yourself off and put a slit in there so that you think that you're a woman. They stated that this whole thing with transgenderism is not at all scientific. It is merely propaganda. It is political. There is no scientific basis to any of this stuff. It is also potentially harmful, very harmful to these people that want to contemplate that. As a result, they recommend the watch and wait approach, because spontaneously, if you just don't do anything, don't pressure them either way, just watch and wait, do not affirm them, watch and wait, take the hands-off approach, that 90% of these people who, like with James at age 7, maybe have these confusions, by the time they come through adolescence, 90% of these people will have everything resolved. Their gender will line up with their biological sex. Not only is it potentially harmful, there are great risks involved. In addition to the higher suicide rate, they mentioned that people who undergo a surgery in which they transition from externally from one sex to the other, they have a shortened lifespan by 20 years. 20 years. If you're going to live to the age of 80, you're going to be 60. If you were going to live to the age of 60, you'll go down to 40. That's statistically speaking, not in every case, but that is what happens. They also said, too, that because they are considered an oddity, they are neither male nor female, that they find out that there are a lot of additional pressures put upon them because people look at them as oddities. They are an oddity. They're a man trying to portray themselves as a woman, and people might think, what is wrong with them up here? Or you've read some articles perhaps where you find a woman who's become a man and says nobody wants to date her. Well, obviously, because even though she's presents herself as a he, she's still a she. Who wants to present her? And then there have been men that have turned themselves into women physically, and they want to know why no man wants them. Well, for crying out loud, I wouldn't want them. That's just the reality of it. There's nothing attractive about it. So they create the fact that they have a smaller gene pool. Another thing that they talk about is infertility, sterility. When you go through these things, if you take your puberty blockers, and then if you go to the cross-sex hormones, you are guaranteed to be infertile. So if you want to say, well, listen, I'm a boy, I'm going to become a girl, and then I'm going to have children, it will never happen. You can't have children. If you keep your sex organ available, it does not make a difference because of the puberty blockers and the sex change hormones, you are infertile. You are sterile. There are numerous other things that took place there. And it's so bad that the second expert that spoke talked about the whole thing being an experiment. It is an experiment. None of the stuff that is taking place is scientific. None of this stuff is proven. Nobody even knows what the consequences of these things are. And he was saying it is so experimental that it should only be done in a clinical setting in which there are strong safeguards. And yet, Dr. Ann Gorgelis and her counselors want to see James, who is 7 right now, not even 8 yet, start to go through this process perhaps in a year or so. They have him on that road by socially affirming him that that's the first step to getting on the road to this medical transition, for him to get puberty blockers, cross-sex hormones, and to face all of these risks. Why would the father not be angry? Why would the father not be aggressive? The attorney has tried to say that the father was acting aggressive and being unreasonable. And in fact, at one point in time, the father told somebody, F you. Well, I turned to my friend and I said, that seems like a very appropriate response. Actually, it seemed like a very measured response. So I'm completely with the father. You're taking my child and you're trying to put this upon him, use him as a medical guinea pig, and I don't even have any say in the matter, and the state is going to back you up. Of course I would be saying such a thing, and I probably would be doing worse. I want to commend Mr. Younger for his restraint. I don't think he should be browbeaten at all for being upset with the whole thing. The whole thing is strictly ideological. And by the way, when I say ideological, I'm talking about the transgender thing. Over the last 30 years, there has been a 20-fold increase in people that are transgender, supposedly. Why is that? And if you listen to these experts talk, they will tell you that part of the reason that you have this transgender thing taking place is because of trauma that takes place, and in particular in family dynamics. They talked about we need to look at the family dynamics to see what they are that cause some of these issues. Again, I go back to the issue of divorce, no-fault divorce. People try to think no-fault divorce or any type of divorce is harmless. It may be harmless supposedly to one of the adults. You are causing great damage to your children. And often this extends not just to your children, into your grandchildren. And this idea with transgenderism, this can be one of the effects of having divorce laws in which people can get divorced for any reason, for no reason. They can make up a reason, such as happens in the state of Texas. So I would say that our laws are encouraging this type of phenomenon taking place in our state. Another population that they said had a higher incidence of transgenderism were autistic people. Now, the autistic people are known to have some type of difficulty with, interacting with society as it is, and there was a very significant rate of a very significantly higher factor of people, and I forget what the exact number was, but it was a very high number in which the autistic people have a much higher higher rate of transgenderism than the normal population. And there is even yet a third population that has an extremely high rate of people that claim to be transgender, and this is the long-term prison population. So you have people that are in the long-term prison population, you have people that are being affected by bad family dynamics or issues like divorce, and you have people that are autistic, and for some reason the people that claim to be transgender are much more highly represented than what they should be in these different categories, which again goes back to the issue that the whole thing is a psychological issue. It is not a biological issue in the vast majority of cases. There may be a few cases, very few, but they are the exception. It's a person who has a psychological problem, a psychological delusion, who has ever suffered some type of trauma. In fact, if you look at the DSM-5, in which they define the certain symptoms that must be present to diagnose a person with gender dysphoria, James is lacking them. So this is pure propaganda. There is no actual diagnosis, no psychological diagnosis. And even if there is a psychological diagnosis, it is considered a psychological disorder. But Dr. Ann Georgelis is trying to make sure that the father has no rights to stop this from taking place. And when you realize that a judge can order this, you should be horrified. Because if it can happen to a father simply because some judge, like Judge Beauchamp, or some other judge, has given the mother certain rights that the father can do nothing about, something is wrong. It's discriminatory on the basis of marital status. It is state intervention involving themselves in the private affairs of the family. It is horrendous. If you are a father or a mother, a grandparent, anybody, you should be concerned about this case. To me, I think this is the most important case that will be heard in the state of Texas this year. This has got to be a case in which the transgender ideology, the political philosophy, is dealt a loss, and that a family, a father, would be able to, or a mother, in the cases that the father would be forcing it, would be able to have some recourse to say, this shall not happen. And furthermore, you need to look at the Texas Family Code, which again, I will tell you, is the Texas Anti-Family Code. The Texas Family Code creates some of these things by allowing them to take place. Our governor knows this. I'm sure our lieutenant governor knows it. Our attorney general knows it. The divorce attorneys know this. Our legislators, many of them know it. This is horrendous, what we have permitted to take place unconstitutionally in the state of Texas. We must fix these problems. This is a symptom of a root issue. We need to get back to the root. We need to fix our Texas Family Code. We need to fix our laws. We need to keep these judges from thinking that somehow they can come in and tell a father, we are ordering you cannot give your child a haircut unless you talk with the amicus attorney, such as Judge Beauchamp or Beecham did to Mr. Younger. This is horrendous. I hope you are following this case. To find out more and to read some of the documents are available at savejames.com, savejames.com. The trial will end on Monday, and the jury verdict will be heard, I hope, Monday afternoon. But anyway, stay tuned, and I'll get back with you later on that. Thank you.